Welcome home, brave heroes. I'm Ash, this is AshQuest, and today we are going to uncover the pieces of Talisman, Alliances, Fate Beckons, the first collaborative expansion, and the first expansion for Talisman 5th edition. Be warned, I already have an unboxing video for this expansion, and we're hot off the heels of that video in recording. That video is the non-spoiler version of this, getting to exactly this point after showing off such elements of the game as the instruction manual, the opening flyer, and the cards that you add to your game immediately before beginning the very first trial. We looked at and explained the Doom tracker system and villain characters, as well as the overall collaborative nature of the game. But we did not open the contents of the 4 pouches or the 5 boxes because these are only to be opened when you have completed the specific trials in Talisman Alliances. There are 5 boxes to be opened upon completing the 5 trials, and 4 pouches to open upon completing trials 1 through 4. Doubtless, these will add additional challenges to the game, but this is your last chance to turn back if you don't want to be spoiled on the contents of these packages. Now, before I go into any more unboxing, I do want to say, for those of you who appreciate having your legacy games put back together and reboxed appropriately so that they can be discovered anew, either by yourself and another party of characters or by a new owner, Talisman Alliances actually has instructions for putting everything back the way it was. So just because you've opened things doesn't mean that anything necessarily has to be permanently changed. Not a legacy game truly, then, per se. Not like Gloomhaven or Widow's Walk, but something that's resettable. And so without further ado, we will begin opening the contents. And yes, I realize because I haven't played the 5 trials that I'm actually spoiling the contents here for myself as well. All that said, I'm going to be very careful in opening these because these pouches are covered with one of those circle pads of tape, and I'm just going to cut through it with one of my cheap hobby knives. Actually, it seems like as long as I lift up the side, it will peel off without taking any of the artwork or paint with it. So that's very nice. I don't have to keep this box taped up. The instructions on not to open it can simply hold for the next time that I'm playing or with the next owner. Now that's it. This is your last chance to turn around and not see any of the spoiler content from this unboxing. If you've seen the generic normal unboxing of this, that's all you need to see to be able to start playing this and not be spoiled on any of the surprise contents. But now we're going to get into real spoiler territory. All right, and it looks like we've got a few cards, a new sealed, unsealed card, 3 adventure cards, one of which is a villain card, the Steward of the Glade. This villain character is now going to be roaming around the board, and we have 2 events, Infectious Wrath and Ancient Cairn. Infectious Wrath is a terrible event. Each hero character with a talisman in their possession loses 1 life. The Ancient Cairn, however, makes up for this by allowing you the chance to gain a fate, gain 2 fate, or gain a talisman. But the Cairn is also a pretty terrible place if you roll low because you could lose a life or advance the Doom tracker 1 space. We also get the Will of the Wisp. This is a new character that you can be in your game of Talisman. You can start at the chapel. You begin the game with 2 spells, and when you roll a 5 or a 6 on the die for your movement, you gain a fate token. When you attack another character, you can choose to use Psychic Combat. You cannot use this ability if encountered by another character. When you exchange enemy spirit trophies for counters, you may treat that enemy's craft value as though it were strength, and you may not use objects that are not magic objects, but you can still pick up and use bags of gold. She has a strength of 1, a craft of 5, a life of 4, a fate of 2, and starts with 1 gold. The Will of the Wisp is a character that can be brought into your normal game of Talisman, your normal non-collaborative game of Talisman. Now, it kind of seems like the top of the box is going to be a little difficult to open. I wonder if I can open the bottom easier. I can. And that does matter to me. Just because I'm opening the boxes doesn't mean I want to be destructive. We have a lot of value in the packaging of stuff here. Oh, very cool. This is the Will of the Wisp. This is our unlocked character. They are really cool. I refer to them as a she, but I guess it could be. I think it's pretty clearly, but it could be ambiguous. They could be androgynous. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I see wonderful sculpt of legs, feet, this draped cloth, raised hand. Everything here is so well done and cast in this clear material, clear plastic. This will be a welcome addition to my normal game of Talisman once we have unlocked her. Now I'm actually going to rebox all of this stuff as I found it because it's just easier to keep things sorted that way. But we will now open the contents of the pouch as if we had completed Trial 2. Actually, I'm going to backtrack just a little bit and we are going to look in the rule book to see what kind of changes once we get to Trial 2, once we have completed Trial 1. These things are things that are covered in the rule book, so we're going to get to that real quick. Trial 1, Desperate Accord. Again, these are spoilers, so spoil yourself if you dare. Winning Trial 1. With a final strike, the Elder Dragon rears back and falls to the ground, the pulsing crimson light infecting its veins, receding, and finally fading to nothing as it gasps for air. It blinks at you weakly, bowing its head in thanks. It will take at least half a century for the dragon to recover from wounds like this, and it's still unclear who or what inflicted the corruption to begin with. Just as you catch your breath, you feel a pulse in the ground beneath you. An earthquake? No, it's stranger than that. With a burst of noise, gnarled roots and leafy vines sprout from the jagged obsidian rock of the Elder Dragon's home. The twisting floor restrains you completely, dragging you with boundless speed through the portal of power and onto the banks of Storm River. You look on in shock as, in moments, the portal of power is wreathed in thorn and vine. Exotic plants, as you've never seen before, sprout and spread, encasing the structure completely. What is the meaning of this? And if you're continuing on to the next trial, you can see Trial 2, Nature's Wrath. If you're done playing for now, you can follow the re-storage steps on page 19. Trial 2, Nature's Wrath, starts with a flavor text introduction as well as preparations for the trial, telling you what to open, how to set up your play area. And if you have set up your play area and are continuing from a previous trial, there are very good instructions in here for continuing no matter where you left off. So, opening the contents of pouch number 2, which we receive as a reward for completing Trial 2. Looks like it's going to be another character, 3 more cards, one of which is the villain card, the Hearty Ogre, and the Banshee Follower, and the Banner of Resistance Object. Add 2 to your strength during battle against villain characters. Loving that one, finally. Something that will help us in our fight against villains. Trial 3, Unfettered Fate, is going to begin now, and this sealing card is going to give us the conditions now for unsealing the Portal of Power. The card that we're going to get is the Centaur. Of all things, we are going to be unlocking a Centaur. With a craft of 3, a strength of 3, life of 4, fate of 2, and gold of 1. When you roll for movement, you may add 1 to your roll total. You cannot use this ability when spending fate to move. After taking your movement while in the outer and middle regions, you may fire your bow at any character or enemy up to 3 spaces away in the same region instead of encountering the space you landed on. Resolve the battle as usual, except that you cannot use a weapon. If you lose, you do not lose a life. If you win, your opponent loses 1 life. You cannot take an object or gold instead. After you roll in the forest, you may choose to ignore the result. The Centaur seems to be a really cool character, able to attack other enemies and characters from a distance. This time, instead of being wrapped in tissue paper, we get a bit of molding candy tray to hold our figurine in place. Does this hero quest? Of course this hero quest. The Talisman miniatures are pretty much the exact same scale and almost the exact same aesthetic as the Hero Quest 2021 miniatures. So you can bring this Centaur as well as the Will-o'-the-Wisp into your games. I believe the Will-o'-the-Wisp be a great attribute in fighting against dread enemies such as the Spectres and the Dread Wraith of Rise of the Dreadmoon in Hero Quest. The Centaur would be able to attack enemies from afar by default with his bow. However, I would probably give them bonuses to movement as well as to their bow actions. The Centaur is a really cool character. Really happy with that one, actually. Moving on to the contents of the boxes that we are to open once we have completed Trial 3 with our Centaur character, maybe. And the circular tapes continue to peel off nicely. Really happy with that. Not damaging anything and not having to cut through tape that will just leave 2 halves of tape on my boxes. Pouring the content out. Looks like we're going to get another bonus hero and a further escalated set of conditions to seal and unseal the Portal of Power. Let's see where we are in Trial 4 versus Trial 1 by comparing the cards. Both times they will be placed on the plane of peril, and the Revenant Lieutenant and Emissary Villain characters will be beneath this card. Do not flip this card until you have unsealed the Portal of Power. With Trial 1, no enemies are placed underneath the sealed card. To unseal the Portal of Power, bury 2 talismans on places of power, then flip this card. These are the same conditions to unseal the portal of power as in Trial 1. Trial event, advance the Doom Tracker 1 space. This is exactly the same thing as well. However, when these are flipped, we have further differences. The adversary of Trial 1 is the Corrupted Elder Dragon with a strength of 10, a craft of 10, and a life of just 1. Hey, he's weakened from being corrupted. But the adversaries of Trial 4 are Death's Traitors, the Revenant Lieutenant, and Emissary. They've got their own cards, so it's not necessary to put the strength and craft and life of each of these villains on the seal unseal card. It doesn't really look like the seal and unseal conditions change a whole lot. It's just, so far the villain has changed, but then again, I haven't really paid much attention to the previous cards. The Revenant Lieutenant and Emissary are here. One starts in the graveyard, the other on the Grave Knight. One has the ability Grave Bargain, and the other one Bulwark. They're pretty strong with strengths of 7 and crafts of 7 and 4 respectively, moves of 8 and 1 life each. The Vengeful Dead is an event that removes all villain characters from the adventure discard pile and shuffles them into a face-down deck. Place 1 card on each hero's character's space, beginning with the player whose turn it is. Return the remaining villain character cards to the bottom of the adventure deck. We will get the Valkyrie. This is awesome. Strength of 3, craft of 4, starting at the chapel with a life of 4, a fate of 3, and of course, as always, 1 gold. You may add 1 strength to your strength during battle. If you force a character to lose 1 life in battle, you gain 1 fate. And you may always encounter the graveyard space as if your alignment was evil, even though that's not the case here. Once per turn, when one of your followers is killed, you may immediately resurrect them and keep them as a follower. The Valkyrie is, as they say, goated. Opening this box, the Valkyrie is going to go stomp the Traitors of Death. Here she is. Pretty decent sculpt. I think it could be a lot cooler, but really I think the paint job is going to bring out the best of the sculpt, differentiating the hair and the braids against the fur on the back. The spear looks really cool. And it's all standard fare for a Valkyrie. We've got the spear, we've got the buckler, we've even got a nice sword at her side to be used alternatively. A pretty immediately recognizable Norse aesthetic, and why shouldn't it be? And we're going to place everything back into the pouch. With this, we begin Trial 4, and now it's time to open up the contents of the final pouch, because this is going to provide us with the conditions and cards needed to play Trial 5. Which is why there's only 4 pouches if you haven't picked up on that by now. Each pouch open contains what is needed to encounter the next trial. We have what we need to begin the first trial. It would have been pretty cool to have a 5th pouch that's like, open this one immediately. Our villain is the Aberration with a strength of 10, a craft of 6, move of 5, and a life of 1. Starting in the Warlock's Cave, we have 2 adventure cards, Gravity Cull and Broken Destiny. The final seal unseal card is the same as all of the other ones in every way, except during this trial, the Inexorable Wheel, enemy spirits gain bonus craft equal to the current space on the Doom Tracker. The last boss of this expansion is the Lich Lord with a strength of 10 and a craft of 10 and a life of 3 or 4. For 1 to 4 players, there are 3 lives, and for 5 to 6 players, there are 4 lives. There's no risk of me getting 5 or 6 players together to play this. So the Lich Lord, I'm sorry, you're always going to have 3 lives. If you defeat the Lich Lord, you win, and you can read Winning Trial 5 on page 18 of the rulebook. We've also unlocked the last character by completing Trial 4, and that is the Minotaur. Of all creatures, the Minotaur makes a return in Talisman. What a lovely surprise. With a strength of 4, a craft of 2, a life of 5, a fate of 2, and a gold of 1. When you battle any character or creature with strength on your turn, you may stampede and add the result of your movement roll to your strength until the end of your turn. You cannot stampede when attacked by another character. You may not use armor. You start at the Crags. The Minotaur will be here in this box when you have completed Trial 4 to add to your games, both collaborative and competitive, and he looks like this. Okay, all right, well, you don't look like your Tinder profile. I have to say, a lot more gore inspiration in the card art for sure. This might be the one time I'd be tempted to just use my classic 3rd edition Minotaur, but it's not terrible. It isn't bad, and if you don't have 3rd edition, this'll be fine. It's fine. It's the Minotaur. It's the Avalon Hill Minotaur, and It's something that you can use absolutely in your Hero Quest games. Perhaps you can use him in your homemade Sinister Sorcerer's expansion, which was going to have the Minotaur. Look, his horn actually poked a hole through the tissue in which he was wrapped. But we will place him back into the box. This is unlocked when you complete Trial 4, when you have defeated the Lich Lord and you have completed Trial 5. You are able to open the last box in this expansion. There are no other pouches to prepare you for anything because the game is essentially over, meaning that the contents of this box is the reward that you get for this entire experience. And so, in opening this box, we have a little bit of a hint at what this is going to be from this smug look from this character. And I mean, it could be any character at all, but the hint lies in that smug look. You see, what is in this cloth is not a new character. It is not a new villain. It is the sculpt of the Minotaur, which is a toad with immense bovine horns. It's awesome. And we actually get a sculpt of a toad, which I believe we did not get with the 5th edition of Talisman. 4th edition did come with toad sculpts. They were noticeably absent from 5th edition, leaving us with tokens. The Minotaur is our very fun reward for completing all 5 of the trials, and this can be added into the game so that whenever a player is transformed into a toad, you can place this toad bewilderingly, inexplicably with these giant horns, even if you're not the Minotaur. Minotaur will be added to all of your future games of Talisman. And that, my friends, brave heroes, or cowardly heroes, depending on how you look at the viewing of an unboxing video that shows you spoiler contents, is my unboxing of Talisman 5th Edition's spoiler content, unveiling the contents of the boxes and pouches within. Hopefully, the explanations of everything here made sense, and I didn't get lost too much in tangents or anything like that. Hopefully, this is something that will, if you weren't convinced already, convince you to picking this up, because I do think that this is an awesome idea for an expansion, and I think that Avalon Hill did a really, really good job on the presentation, on the mechanics, on the unlocking element, on pretty much everything here. It was just all fantastic. We can ignore the absence of one of the words here on the very first page, one of the very first things you see when you open the box. Everything past that point is just great. So thank you to Avalon Hill for knocking this out of the park. And if you regret spoiling yourself on any of the contents in this video, just comment down below. Hey, I thought I wanted to know what was in here, but guys, it's great. Don't watch the video. I don't mind if people don't watch the video. That isn't really how YouTube works, but I mean, this is a pretty sensitive subject. By virtue of its very nature, I can understand people don't want to watch this one. Totally optional. But thank you so much for watching it, and I will see you in the next video. Until then, have a fantastic spoiler-free rest of your day, brave heroes, and onward.